Up until yesterday, did you like Snapcase?
I liked Snapcase for about a minute in 1994 or 95 when Looking Glass Self came out, and then quickly moved on and never looked back.
Yeah, I also liked them for what I thought was about a minute. Let's see, our other recurring theme is stuff that you're obsessed with, but sort of embarrassed by that's the thing that you're obsessed with.
So for you, it's the Beastie Boys,
Yeah.
and for me, it's
You are now listening to Male Worship Radio.
All right. We're recording Male Worship live from a hotel. Well, not live. Recorded in a hotel room in Vandalia, Illinois.
is that where we are?
That's where we are, driving across the country so that Jason can move from
Mount Shasta to Providence,
No.
Rhode Island.
and I'm along for the ride because I'm a glutton for punishment.
No, you're a good friend. That's how you're doing it.
What day are we on this thing?
What is this, day 5?
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Day 5.
Day 5 of this. We're going to record an episode today. Now Worship Radio. If these are normally freeform, this is going to be hella freeform. 2 dudes, 2 dogs. I got my grounding mat. We're in full effect. What should we talk about first?
I don't know. What do you think? We've been talking about some stuff in the car.
Oh, yeah. How about this? Up until yesterday, did you like Snapcase?
I liked Snapcase for about a minute in 1994 or 95 when Looking Glass Self came out, and then quickly moved on and never looked back until recently. And I was telling you, I listened to like 1 or 2 tracks off of Looking Glass Self about a week ago and didn't pursue the rest of the record, but then put it on in the car yesterday. We listened to the whole thing, and I gotta say, I think they're pretty good.
Yeah, I also liked them for what I thought was about a minute. I listened to that first record when it came out a lot. I recognized a ton of it, but I haven't listened to it really since it came out. And in my mind, Snapcase were cheesy.
Me too.
And then we listened to that first record, and we're immediately like, this is pretty awesome. And then the more we listened to it, the more awesome we thought it was.
Yeah, they're really good. Was that their first full length?
Yeah.
So prior to that, they had put out 1 7-inch on Victory, right?
Yep. They had the 1 7-inch on Victory with a different singer.
Oh, okay. All right.
Which is still amazing because, like, imagine you discover that your bass player has got, like, this amazing voice and technique, you know, hiding in the bass player, the most overlooked or useless of all hardcore instrumentalists.
Yes, definitely. So that was the deal with Snapcase. What's the singer's name? Daryl something?
Yeah, it's Taberski, I believe it is.
Yeah. So he was the bass player, and then he moved over to vocals, and they got a different bass player. That was kind of a moment for hardcore when that came out. I feel like it was like a big hit.
I know that everyone I knew was super looking forward to it because they toured with Earth Crisis, like Firestorm era Earth Crisis. And like, I don't know anyone that heard that first 7-inch, and seeing them live. Yeah, it's like, it's not like I remember them being one of those bands like, oh man, they go off. I remember everyone like listening to them and kind of being blown away. So then when that LP came out and it had that very distinct sound, it was like a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
My friend group, we were kind of like off, like that sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, like mainstream hardcore so quickly.
Yeah, Victory.
Yeah, that I didn't watch them develop after that. I just assumed like, oh, Snapcase, whatever.
Yeah, you know, I have to admit, I think the thing that, like, the moment where I soured on them 30 years ago was when I saw them, when they toured with the Donuts, which was an all-female Swedish hardcore band that weren't very good. And I think just the association put me off. Like, it seemed like I don't know, like the hardcore boy band or something. Like, but they weren't, they aren't and weren't, but it just seemed like that to me at the time. But yeah, Looking Glass Self, I mean, that was definitely peak Victory, I think, at least for that decade. Like, because Strife was on Victory, Earth Crisis was on Victory, and Snapcase, and all those were like really, that Strife album was a big deal too, and it came out around the same time.
Yeah, I remember that.
One Truth. Yeah, so I don't know. I regret having written Snapcase off, honestly, because there's so many interesting things going on, especially with like the guitars and technique and stuff, that was the other thing that sullied their image to me, I think, was people copying that sort of thing pretty immediately after, to like sort of high-pitched harmonics combined
Because
with
it seems easy to do. Yeah, like you can look at it, it seems very formulaic. Like you do like your rhythm guitars, like intermittent chugs.
Yeah.
And then you have like these, that's a conversion, but whatever.
Right.
You have like that thing happening.
Yeah.
And it seems easy to do, but clearly, like even in that first record, when they do it, they're doing something really unique and special.
But weren't we talking about this in the car yesterday, where we were like conjecturing whether or not nu metal was kind of almost a not direct result of bands like Snapcase, but definitely like almost direct result.
Yeah, definitely like a copies of copies or something.
Yeah. Because I guarantee you, I bet if you like the guys in Korn or something probably had that record, I would imagine. Because
it sounds like it.
Yeah. And for the record, I don't like Korn. I don't mind that stuff as much as I used to, but I do remember at the time when nu metal became a thing, it feeling very much like a close cousin to that like mid-90s like...
What was I going to say?
Nu metal?
Oh, yeah. Because I said that really quickly listening to it, right?
Yeah,
This
almost
like
immediate.
Nu metal.
Yeah, which it is in a way, in the best sense.
It's interesting because it's almost like it takes the mid-tempo parts of like 108, couples it with like sort of Earth Crisis, because I feel like Earth Crisis were like almost like the first like pure chug band off that soundage, but then makes it futuristic sounding.
Yeah,
like even that very first, because
Drain Me.
Yeah, the follow-up records the sound gets more refined, but it sounds even more and more like them. But that first record, it sounds like futuristic. It's insane how it sounds.
Yeah, the production's really good, especially in an era where production was questionable. Like it was iffy. There wasn't a very high standard, I don't think, for 90s hardcore. Probably, I think due to lack of budget in most cases. But and again, back to the Victory thing. I mean, back then you were either into the Victory stuff or against it, and if you're against it, we're probably like a Ebullition, or that there was like diametrically opposed. And
and I wasn't fully like 100% Mr. Ebullition yet, but it was around the corner.
Yeah, same here. Definitely.
Which is funny because we've like talked about this, but it's like all the records I would like take into a time capsule from the 90s, like these are awesome. They're almost universally records that I would have ignored in the 90s.
Yeah, same here.
Like I would, that Snapcase record or the next one. I was thinking about this when we listened to that first record, is where's the singer going to go from here? Because he's like, his voice is super cool, but he does a very one-dimensional thing on that record. It's sort of the same all the time.
Yeah.
All the way through. And then it's cool when you listen to the second record, how the sound is exactly the same in the sound of his voice, but he starts using rhythm more. Oh, yeah. So that his voice, this is such a dumb metaphor, but it's almost like how said G, from Ultramagnetic MCs, he'll use that like one sample, like one piece of guitar, and then keep like playing it a bunch of different ways, like introducing rhythm to a single note or chord.
Right.
And that's kind of what he does. Like his vocal range doesn't change. It's just he starts chopping up syllables, spacing stuff out, all that stuff that makes it better.
And it's almost like the same kind of treatment they give all the rhythm guitars there too, where it's like chopped up and intermittent and stuff.
Yep.
Totally. Yeah, I think this is a salient topic though, because as I mentioned to you, there's like, a documentary that's either out or about to come out about Snapcase that I'm actually really want to see now because I have to admit I don't know much about them beyond my experience with Looking Glass Self and seeing them maybe twice in the 90s or something. But they did
Yeah, Snapcase, awesome. And then with us on the third record,
oh, that was the third one we listened to from around the year 2000.
yeah, I think I was at 99. I think that one's from 99.
Is
They
he
put
not
out
on
a
one?
lot of stuff really quickly.
They did, and I'm curious what they obviously had an audience, but did the audience stick around? I wonder, like, did they have I mean, I just wonder how many people like us kind of moved on by the time they put out their second and third records. And
That's a big question. Hardcore is such a weird, like, transient music.
Yeah.
That unless you became like a diehard fan of Snapcase, but they clearly, I mean, they were doing something right because, like, they were touring with Into the Thousands bands like Bad Religion and No Effects.
Right.
I'm assuming that was like based on the idea that Snapcase had a draw that justified having them open to bring in new fans.
Yeah,
and not thinking it was going to irritate your fans.
Yeah. I wonder if they were on Victory at that point still.
I believe all the records are on Victory.
Oh, really?
If I'm not mistaken.
Quick question: is Victory still around?
No, I think they were acquired first and then probably driven into the ground, as often happens when things were acquired.
Interesting.
I remember there being some sketchy stuff about like every contract being bought up by some other company without ever talking to like bands or anything.
Oh, really? I wonder if that, because I remember vaguely some controversy surrounding Victory in terms of like, why were they kind of disliked? Was it because they were more corporate of an indie label, or Tony Brummel? I remember kind of people didn't like him for some reason.
I think it was the like professionalism.
Yeah.
Professionalism. There we go. I think it was the professionalism, the slickness.
Right.
Because even didn't Dead Guy in their documentary basically say,
oh yeah,
they were only on Victory because that was like the only label that could like give them any support, but they didn't really want to be on Victory.
Right. Yeah, they were kind of an odd fit for Victory. But then they kind of made sense. Okay, so real quick, not to change the subject, but the big Victory bands of that time were the three we mentioned, I guess Dead Guy, but then also Bloodlight, like, ended up on Victory too, I think, didn't they?
Yeah. That's why Dead Guy toured with Bloodlight.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I remember when that Bloodlight LP came out, the one with like, I think it's called Eclectic.
Is that?
Damn. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was Snapcase. That's where I land on.
Yeah, me too. That's way up my alley nowadays. I mean, I think for me, the door that opened for me where I was able to like fully embrace like heavy down tune chugga music was Crowbar recently. And then, so when I go back and I listen to Snapcase, it makes a hell of a lot more sense to me, just on a base level. And like, okay, this is good stuff,
Oh yeah, and I think one of the things that I realized, like, it's like about the first record is like, one, it sounds super cool, and then two, it's like really well played. Yeah, one of the things that's awesome about that record is drumming is really good, and it needs to be good because with a lot of the bands that were doing that type of sound that kind of copied it or whatever, they didn't have good drumming, so they just had these like awkward, like choppy guitar parts.
Yeah.
And the songs have no like flow. I think that we're talking about how the drumming almost plays against the guitars to keep it like really rhythmic and cool sounding and flowing and not just like kind of choppy bad math rock or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. We got to find out where to see that documentary, because I definitely want to know more about them, like the bio of the band, from at least from the perspective of the documentary, and kind of how they came to be. Where they're from, Buffalo, right?
Yep.
So upstate.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know
Well, that's Western New York, not upstate, technically speaking.
Mm.
Syracuse is considered upstate, but I think Buffalo is Western New York.
If I would be curious about just the development of that sound. Like,
Yeah.
was it totally organic of just like messing around, fiddling with stuff, or was there something that they also heard where they were like, oh, wow? Because I could easily see somebody getting to some part of their sound just by screwing around with their equipment.
Right.
And being like, wait a sec, check this out. But at the same time, you could also imagine hearing something and being like, that's what I want my guitars to sound like.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. That definitely is a standout album. And I think I was just going to say that I think out of all that stuff, in a lot of ways, Snapcase is kind of the most inventive. I was just going to say that Earth Crisis were inventive in their own way, but they're only in the sense that they brought in like such a metal influence. Like it's like there's a lot of like it reminds you of all this stuff, but then Snapcase is kind of doing similar stuff, but then they're really screwing around with like arrangements in a really interesting way. And just the arrangements of the guitar syncopated with the vocals and the drums and stuff. What they were doing is a lot more complex, I think, than what Earth Crisis is doing. But what Earth Crisis did that blew everyone's minds is they could actually play metal really well, And I think that's also the reason why like Converge stood out at the time as well, or were beginning to stand out at the time, because they actually could do the stuff, whereas a lot of the also ran bands were sort of more like amateurish in their rhythm sections and stuff.
Yeah. Early on, that first thing that they did that was like so important was like the brutal simplicity of like a chugga chugga riff with nothing else.
Yeah.
Like, because it's so funny, because I'm sure you had the same experience. That first time you hear Firestorm,
Yeah.
and you're like,
so simple.
holy crap.
Yeah.
Like, you could just do that.
Yeah, totally.
It's like, it's revolutionary, because metal is so obsessed with like virtuosity.
Yeah.
And then to do something that takes like a fundamental part of metal, but then gets rid of virtuosity, just in favor of like pure force.
Yeah.
And then, of course, leads to so much bad music.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
But they obviously redeem themselves, because to destroy the machines, you're correct, is folly also.
Yeah, Destroy the Machines is like desert island hardcore record for me, for sure. I have that whole thing like memorized. I've listened to it so many times. But the other comparison I felt compelled to mention in the car was Refused, who I don't like, but when I heard Snapcase, it sounds like kind of it led to that sound to some extent too, even though Refused were like also kind of ripping off like more sort of screamo type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But just that, I just remember the video for the single for The Shape of Punk to Come sounding Snapcase-ish. But then they had the aesthetics of like a San Diego band, but they're from Sweden.
Let's see. Our other recurring theme of the last few days is stuff that you're obsessed with, but sort of embarrassed by that's the thing that you're obsessed with.
Okay, so we have our respective groups that it's that.
Yeah.
So for you, it's the Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
And for me, it's Nirvana. And I think what we were talking about in the car is like reaching an age where you just don't really give a puff, but like you happen to like, it's not middle of the road, but it's almost like it's popular music.
It's stuff that literally everyone likes.
Yeah, like everybody likes the Beastie Boys. Well, everybody our age, I don't know about, like we talked about in the car how some of that stuff wouldn't fly with like Gen Z because it's so offensive,
Yeah.
But the same could be said about Nirvana too. I mean, yeah, I don't really know what is it about the Beastie Boys for you that you find so compelling all these years later?
So there's like obviously musical stuff, like
production.
Yeah, like Paul's Boutique, made by anyone, is an astounding achievement on literally every level. Like from production in terms of beat making to studio production to what they're saying, how they're saying it, all of that stuff. But then like the stuff that they conceptually embody as a band, that's that's probably why it's so interesting to me, because of the fact that like they never stop being themselves. Like when Check Your Head comes out and they actually dive back into the kind of like rhyme styles of License to Ill, and that they're being very cognizant of paying homage to Run DMC.
Yeah.
Like on Pass the Mic, for example, like they're literally are quoting Run DMC at one point.
Yeah.
And that's at a point where every other rapper that they came up with is attempting to be modern and new and compete with basically like DOS effects or gangster rap.
Right.
And they instead are like,
oh, they're still keeping it real.
Yeah, they get like very insular. Like they become party rappers that you don't get the impression that they're actually going to go rap at a party. Instead, they're like in this studio with this group of people, heads down, just making volumes of music.
Sure.
And then there's this that aspect to it, but they continued the whole time, which is like this kind of mixtape aesthetic.
Yeah, definitely.
Which of basically having no parameters around the band anymore. Like there's no guardrails for what is and isn't the Beastie Boys.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
Like, if we make it, it's the Beastie Boys. Check Your Head is the one that's probably the most aesthetically coherent after Paul's Boutique because of the way they EQ stuff. Like they make everything sound live.
Yeah.
Even when it's samples, like they EQ the samples so they sound live, and they play stuff that is a sample, and it's utterly kind of, it's very coherent, even though musically it changes. And later records, like the hip hop stuff, sounds more like, oh, that's a drum loop. But it's that idea of like, oh, we feel like making a funk song today, so we made a funk song. And
or like a hardcore song.
Yeah. And the freedom of it. Because, like that song Gratitude.
Yeah.
Like at first glance is a hardcore song.
Yeah.
Except it does so much stuff that you would not be allowed to do as like a hardcore band.
Well, that main riff is like almost like a bluesy.
Yeah, it's got like flange. Yeah, it's got like flange on it.
Yeah.
Like you're not doing that. Click Attack Catawi was like the only band that like had the balls to do like flange on the guitars. And then there's bongos later. And that it's my favorite thing about that song, which is so dumb, but it's when Avrock says things they bounce like a Spalding. And it's like in a song like that, you're not allowed to have a metaphor that's more like a rap metaphor.
Right.
Now that's super common, but that's like a really unusual thing to do, to like have a very rap metaphor in a song.
Right.
And to me is like such a nice indication of like a band that is 100% just themselves and embracing sort of every single aspect of it, that like we can make a hardcore song, but we don't have to switch up the way we write, and then we can still do the issue we're like playing with on the funk songs.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come off as like, I don't know, like, hey, what if we did a hardcore song that was like hardcore meets bongo music?
Yeah, it was more natural and organic sounding than that.
It's that stuff that, and it hit me at a time that's like very important, like 1991.
Yeah.
That part's really important, but I like pretty much everything they did from beginning to end. So there's obviously more to it. So like I'm obsessed with Check Your Head, and then I don't like
Hello Nasty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I listened to Hello Nasty Into the Ground. So
they created their own. The thing about the Beastie Boys is they weren't imitated much. Like I don't think anyone went after, like they're truly peerless. Like they don't have it. There weren't a lot of like Beastie Boy sound-alikes.
No, not at all.
Because who could do that?
It's sort of like funny that no one really took the lesson. I think it's because the Beastie Boys had to get so small to get big again. And this is like something that, this is like kind of ancient history at this point, but like in 1986, when the Beastie Boys' first record comes out, they are the biggest, most controversial group in the world.
Yeah.
Like there are riots. They get arrested. They're in the press constantly, and they're dating celebrities. Like their existence was kind of insane. And then Paul's Boutique came out, and it kind of flopped, and that allowed them to get very small to where, like, check your head, like they're playing small clubs and stuff,
Right.
and debating whether they're going to play at all.
Right. Yeah, that was such a massively influential record on culture and fashion, and it just was like this thing where it was like all these things kind of crossing over, like with skateboarding as well, because that was like,
yeah, because it was like in the Plan B video.
yeah, everybody started wearing Pumas and Gazelles.
Yeah, and we used to get like Pumas and Gazelles from like Marshalls.
Yep.
Because they were easy to get. They were only available at discount stores and like kind of graffiti streetwear boutiques.
Yeah.
Like nowhere in between.
Yeah.
I kind of forget about that stuff, like all the stuff that they made cool, like the Phillies blunt shirts and stuff like that. It would definitely was like hugely influential. I think Aaron Rose of Alleged Gallery and like the Beautiful Losers curator, he sort of summed up that whole aesthetic as being like, this is basically like this is the world that Check Your Head created.
Yeah,
this
definitely.
like merging of graffiti, folk art, hip hop, punk, skateboarding, like all that stuff kind of in one big web.
Yeah.
But it is funny because you said, they're so popular and so obviously popular that you're like, I can't believe that like my favorite thing is the Beastie Boys.
I mean, that's kind of how I feel about Nirvana, but I think for me, the ongoing fascination has to do with a lot of the guitar stuff, but it also is like, it's kind of similar. They came out of nowhere, whereas the Beastie Boys came back, but they seem like the least likely group to take over the world overnight, and it's kind of hard to understand that, like, this sort of punkish band from like the middle of nowhere became not only the biggest thing, but the most influential thing for like some years to come, and alternative music and stuff. That was like inconceivable in 1989, Then 2 years time, that would be like, because I think Bleach came out in 89. No one would at the time, the late 80s, would have listened to Bleach and been like, this is going to be the biggest band in the world in a few years. You know what I mean? Because it's so uncommercial sounding. So that's kind of like, I think, where my focus with Nirvana is. But I mean, I have, yeah.
I'd love to have this conversation with other people to find out if the thing that unifies the bands that become like your obsessions, if there is a confounding nature to it. Because like the Beastie Boys, like there's something confound about it. Like the innovation coupled with the like time and place and the age of like how young they were.
Yeah.
Like they were like, Check Your Head's their third album. It's a comeback. There has beens. And two of them are only 24.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but then again, it's kind of unbelievable that the Beastie Boys had a hit with License to Ill, even though, because given their background as like a New York hardcore band,
Yeah, totally.
To transform, like that. I wonder what that was, where the light bulb, because wasn't technically their first release the Cookie Puss? The Cookie Puss was the first like slab of vinyl, wasn't it?
Did they have a 7-inch as a hardcore band?
That's a good question. They might have.
Like, I know there's like a record that came out in retrospect of the hardcore band. The Some Old Voltage record is like from that time, but I don't remember if they put out an actual 7-inch or not.
All I know of is Cookie Puss, which did that end up on? Was that on Licensed to Ill?
No.
So it was a different thing, but it's almost like not even a real record. It was like a novelty thing. It's like a crank call, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a crank call turned into like a thing. And there's like so Cookie Puss was made, if I recall correctly, by eating up studio time after recording proper Beastie Boys hardcore songs.
Oh, okay.
And I think there's like a funny story that Ad Rock asked for money to buy a new guitar or something, and then he saw a drum machine and was like,
Bought that instead.
yeah, he bought the drum machine instead. And that's how like they made Cookie Puss.
Oh, all right. I haven't heard that in a very long time.
Yeah, and then Cookie Puss made them not rich, but it gave them a little chunk of change because it was used in like a Royal Caribbean cruise commercial
Oh, really?
without their permission. Then they got a lawyer who got them like, I can't remember, like 20 grand or something.
Oh, wow.
And then they lived off that for a while so that they could do like license sale. But they were also like kids.
But licensed sale, Rick Rubin had a lot to do with that,
Yeah.
didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. But it's funny because, you know, it's so weird because it sounds so pretentious to be like, oh, if you want to have like fans that are obsessed, you have to give them something to be obsessed about.
Sure.
And like, you know, even like with Nirvana, they're both like, how the hell did this happen? But then like, I only listened to In Utero in full first time the other day. I never actually listened to that record, and listening to the Albini mix, and you're like, oh, were they trying to burn down their fame? Because this sounds like a band that wants out of everything.
Yeah. I think they just wanted to get back to doing what they wanted to do. From what I understand, because I like partly live in Nirvana world when I'm on the internet. From what I understand from interviews and stuff, they were satisfied with Nevermind to an extent, but when it became like such a phenomena, they really wanted to get back to just making like more, I don't know, less commercial sounding record, which obviously In Utero has like a couple of singles off it that are like classics now, but generally speaking, they wanted to get back, and I don't think the label was too happy with it when they turned it in, and they forced them to like do who remixed all Apologies. It was Scott Litt, I think, the guy that did like the REM stuff.
Oh, okay.
To make it more radio friendly, but then when you listen to the Albini mix of it, it's like almost a different song in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, it literally sounds like a different recording, even though it's not.
Yeah, definitely. Almost like a Pixies type song or something. But yeah, I think that they were definitely trying to maybe not alienate the fans they made, but they certainly weren't trying to like appease expectation at that point. Because some of that stuff, like that song "Milk It" or "Very Ape," it's like not that far removed from like the Jesus Lizard or Unsane in some ways.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
It's just brutally heavy.
It's like a noise rock record.
Yeah, and when you combine that with Albini production, it's like it still sounds so fresh, because I don't think Steve Albini's records don't sound dated, generally speaking. Like if you go back, like he had a very...
They don't tend to have like a sound that's like identified with like a trend in like engineering and stuff.
That's what made him great. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you mentioned it already, but there's like we talked about it in the car about like there's a certain amount of embarrassment to it too, because it's like not embarrassment, but it's like, oh, how did it get to the point where I'm liking, like, I'm this age now, I grew up with that music, I liked it then, but now it's like everything. It's but I mean, we're obviously like checking out like other kinds of music and stuff, but I'm as surprised as anyone that I've kind of gone down this Nirvana rabbit hole in the last few years. But then when I've always liked them, okay, Bella, come here, over here.
Lord.
I'm losing my train of thought.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel the same way about the thing. And there's nothing I'm like quite as obsessed with as the Beastie Boys, but there's other things where
well, for me it's extra embarrassing because Kurt Cobain's kind of like it seems like a girl thing to be obsessed with Nirvana to me. you know. But I'm not like obsessed with Kurt Cobain. I'm obsessed. It's like it's the music that I'm interested in, not really the people as much. I mean, interesting guy, obviously, and a very controversial demise. But I mean, I think the thing that's common between the two, the Beastie Boys and Nirvana, is that like it sounds kind of silly, but it's like the trio thing is kind of impressive too. Like, you know, like the fact that the Beastie Boys, it's like they obviously involved other people in the production, and Nirvana did too. But I just like the idea of that kind of minimalism,
Mm-hmm.
you know, where it's like just guitar, drums, and bass and vocals. And, you know, the Beastie Boys, it's kind of a different dynamic for me. And the appeal is, like I said in the car, like the way they trade off verses and stuff.
Yeah.
Is like incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. So on that note,
Yeah, it's funny because I think about other things I do have sort of like somewhat of an obsession with, but not quite as far as that. But we have like, I wouldn't say I'm like obsessed with, say, Radiohead, right? I take a lot of inspiration from the different like creative moves that they make, like
sure.
to be again like circa 1998 or whatever, like the biggest rock band in the world,
Yeah.
and then to be like, it's we either need to reinvent what we're doing or break up. Like we can't do more of the same, and then to go through this whole period of essentially like transforming into like electronic musicians,
Yeah.
um, and doing that again even in like 2010 or something. I think the King of Limbs record, the whole record is written using custom turntable software.
Oh, really?
So that so that they like record themselves playing stuff, but then they improvise that stuff into
The turntables.
yeah, new compositions
Interesting.
that then later, in order to tour, they had to actually figure out how to play the stuff that they had written.
Sure.
And again, like that's kind of a crazy decision to make, because that's like you can be like, oh well, they're Radiohead, they can do whatever they want, or they're the Beastie Boys, they can do whatever they want, or Nirvana. Well, but like that's still a wild move.
Radiohead's like kind of comparable in a way too, though, because they were kind of a one-hit wonder at first
Mm-hmm.
with Creep, and then it was like, where do you go from here? And they made the Bends, which I don't think flopped, but it was like it wasn't quite as big. And then OK Computer came out, and it was like, oh, they totally reinvented. And then they just kept doing it. Like every record was like a totally different. I mean, I definitely followed them for a while. I think Kid A was the most surprising one, though. Like that I remember.
I had zero interest in them until Kid A. Like I remember seeing them on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
And play the national anthem and Idiotech.
Oh yeah.
And I don't remember if this was like pre-texting. I might have called my brother and been like, is this what Radiohead sounds like? And he's like, no, this isn't what Radiohead sounds like. I was like, oh, this is awesome.
Are they still together?
Yeah, they're just a very intermittent operation.
Because now Tom York has that project, The Smile, right?
Oh yeah, with John and I think they all make like solo stuff. But they're definitely like when we feel like it will make a record,
Sure.
or they'll be like, yeah, we're gonna play 2 shows next year.
Yeah. But they don't tour anymore too much, huh?
No, I think they do things where like they play like 4 shows in a month and then they're kind of done for the year.
Yeah.
Very often.
Must be nice to hit that level where you don't have to tour.
Yeah. So yeah, I think like they do some like really interesting stuff, but in general, what works for me about them is I just take so much from like their kind of creative processes or ethos or whatever. And of course, like they always have amazing record packaging, even if aesthetically I'm not into something, that's like what they're doing. It's so all encompassing.
Yeah,
That it's all like the Beastie Boys or Nirvana for that matter. And then how about this? Storage Wars.
Oh, what about it?
rules.
What? Oh yeah, it totally rules. Yeah, some Storage Wars. I wonder if we'll be able to catch any tonight.
You know what I thought we would do? Like, well, actually, what I thought the problem would be getting distracted by watching movies or something.
Yeah.
But instead, the only part of this like trip, so we like drive 8 to 9 hours a day, I think. And the only part that feels like a vacation is watching just
Vegging out and
vegging out on like Family Guy episodes or or The Office, like 3 or 4 episodes of The Office.
Yeah.
With commercials, which is weird because, like, you know, do you ever see commercials anymore? Like,
No, because I don't watch TV and
yeah, it's crazy.
I watch everything online. So,
But man, yeah, like just like hanging out watching Storage Wars.
yeah, it's relaxing. I mean, it's a treat for me because I don't even have a TV.
That seems like Cops, a nearly perfect modern TV show because it's like super digestible narratives.
Yeah.
Like I bet you'd imagine without even seeing evidence of it that they probably have the easiest time making like YouTube shorts and reels from that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's just like, one, there's like the drama built into it, but then two, the stories are so easy. Like, this guy bid this much, this guy bid this much and got it. And then it found out that all he had was garbage bags full of cat litter.
Right.
The stories aren't real.
Yeah.
It's very, like, it's over super quickly.
Is that show like, are they still making new episodes? Were we seeing new or was those old episodes?
I didn't do enough research to truly know anything about Storage Wars.
What's that guy's name? The guy that everybody hates.
The Yup guy, the Steve Albini guy.
Yeah. Dave something?
Yeah, Dave. We got Dave, who looks like Steve Albini, and then Jarrod. And then is Ivy, is that the guy that looks just like Killer Mike?
Oh, yeah.
And is the same weight. Actually, he's probably a little bit skinnier than Killer Mike.
Yeah, he looks like his cousin or something.
I did think that maybe they were related.
Yeah, brothers maybe.
Loves those brothers. We got any other stuff to talk about?
Yeah, we're very tired. Although I did want to mention that in Thurston Moore's autobiography, which I didn't read, I listened to, he does discuss the Beastie Boys a bit and like his sort of confoundment at them blowing up with Licensed to Ill after, because his first impression was like the Cookie Puss thing and the fact that they were just some kids in a hardcore band.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few years later, like by 86, they're like on top of the world, like touring with Madonna and like,
yeah,
you know,
and attempting to live out the Def Leppard biography.
Yeah.
Just not Def Leppard.
What? Zeppelin?
Led Zeppelin biography.
Well, they were like party animals for real, weren't they? Like at first.
Well, I think that they were like just kids, and then one of them got a copy of a book about Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, the Hammer of the Gods, I think.
Yeah, and they literally decided that was going to be the bloop of like their behavior. So
right.
They even tried going to that one hotel in Seattle.
Oh, really?
Fish out the windows.
Really?
Except that it was all polluted and disgusting by 1986.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In the Beastie Boys book, which is literally just called Beastie Boys book, there's a thing where they get kicked out of tons of hotels, but in one of them, Ad Rock drills a hole through the floor of his hotel room so that he can flood MCA's hotel room. This is like, I can't remember what hotel it is, but like some fancy hotel. That was like the kind of stuff that they were doing like routinely because they thought like that's what they were like, well, we're rock stars now, so we should be doing rock star activities.
That's funny.
And then that's the other baby crazy thing too. Just the last thing about the Beastie Boys, the idea that when they were huge in 1986, one of them, I don't even think MCA was old enough to drink yet.
I didn't realize they were that young.
He was maybe 19.
Wow.
And the other two were 16.
When Licensed to Ill came in.
Yeah, and
wow.
Bear in mind they're touring with giant Coors cans on stage.
Yeah.
And at least possibly all of them, but definitely two of them aren't old enough to be drinking.
Right.
Because they were just like, even when they hooked up with Rick Rubin, he was like a freshman in college.
Yeah.
And then these were these little weird kids that would come hang out with him.
Wasn't he a UMass student I think he went to UMass, Amherst or something.
No, I don't think so. He's from Long Island and then went to like CUNY. Is that what it is? Columbia.
I was why do I think he went to UMass?
No, I don't think so.
Maybe that was Jay Mascis or something. I know he's from Amherst and everything, but
That sounds reasonable.
anyway.
Anyway, this was Nail Worship Radio.
Tired Radio.
Yeah, thanks for watching. And how about this? I'm gonna make a promise that I can't really keep. There will be some Nail Worship merch soon
Cool.
with our delightful logo as well as some other bizarro sentiments. Peace out, y'all.
Make sure to like and subscribe and tell all your friends about this podcast.
Please do that. Hit that share button, know what I mean? All right, thanks.
Thank you.